I'm a guy that's 26. Each day I build with bricks. I like Star Wars playset. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back with another video, and this is going to be another episode of the LEGO Star Wars Mock Showcase. This is a series where I show you some of the most awesome, beautiful, wonderful LEGO Star Wars builds that I've come across on the internet. The one thing I ask is if you find any of these builds particularly interesting or cool, please go to the links in the description and go support those builders. They're the ones who deserve all the credit. The first build we're going to look at today is titled Kamino Barracks by WG Productions. Now, as someone who was building a Kamino mock, this was a really timely mock for me to come across, and I'm thoroughly enjoying looking at it even now, and I hope you guys get a kick out of it as well. There's some really good stuff in this build. So let's first start off down below. We have an assembly of some clone troopers. A few of them are unhelmeted and looks like they're getting a visit by some specialty clone troopers like these guys right here. I have no idea who these people are or what they might be doing, but I feel this is maybe one of those like story-driven builds, probably for one of the RPG games that these guys are playing with these LEGO Star Wars builds. But either way, they're cool looking figures, and I like the figure placement down here. It looks really cool, looks natural. I love the consistency of the darker skin tone for the clone troopers, like the two down below, or even these two up here. That's really nice. Just a way to, you know, find a variety of those different skin tones and not just rely on having one facial expression for all of these guys. I have to point out the walls. I think these are done very well. I love that he's using these arch pieces to basically just have the walls curved going all the way around. I do find it kind of interesting that he's using dark orange rather than normal orange, and I've seen a few people do this when it comes to Kamino builds. I think ultimately I would probably do normal orange, but dark orange works well. I could definitely see, you know, in some sources for the Kamino Barracks, you know, why you might want to do dark orange there. I do think maybe regular orange might be my preference. Up top we have a ladder that is made of these bar clip pieces, and then looks like there's some white flex tubing that goes from the top all the way to the bottom, and I think this is a really nice design here, and he has the 3 length bars between them, so nice to see. Just a cool looking ladder right there. And you can see we have the beds. These are the ones that I guess can slide in and out of these arch pieces that are connected side to side. I'm not sure if these are actually functional or if they just kind of sit there and he just has one actually built out, but I don't know. WG, if you're watching this video, let us know. Are these functional beds? Can you pull each one out, or is there just are they just static and then you have one of them built out? These are the questions that are going to keep me up at night. Another technique that I always enjoy seeing are the usage of these LEGO doors or panels right here when you stick them into those vent pieces. It's such a nice aesthetic. It's not as thick as like putting a tile there. It's only what, like half a plate thick, so it looks really good. I like when builders do that. We can see over on the side as well as the top that he's included an extra amount of greebling. Nothing too over the top, but just some extra stuff to make the side of the build maybe look just slightly more interesting than it normally would look. So I have a small appreciation for that. One other thing I did want to highlight on this build are, you know, he has some cool cargo crates at the bottom there, but then also in here he has like that bench where the guy's helmet is sitting, and I think that looks really nice as well. That's a nice little detail to just add something a little bit more interesting right there. And of course it is accurate. We do see those benches down there below the barracks. So altogether this is just a very well made build. Another one, I want to keep bringing this up. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but these are the types of like just small things you can put on shelves to display some figures. You know, if you have some Phase 1 clones, if you plan on picking up the Phase 1 clone figure pack that's going to be coming to LEGO stores in January, and you want a way to display those guys, if you want to build either something like this or something maybe even a little bit smaller than this, I think it would be awesome. So wonderful job on this build, man. Our next build is by ARKUM ELO, and it is titled Operation Sandstone. Now there is a lot going on in this build, and it just leaves me with one question. what the heck is Operation Sandstone? Like, what is going on in this operation? There are just such a variety of things to look at in this build. So let's first start at the very bottom. So here is some sand that may or may not have something to do with Operation Sandstone, but it looks like we have some, what might be, I don't know, rebel insurgents over here, and they're going toe-to-toe with the stormtroopers, which is kind of cool. There's just a stack of battle droids. I have no idea what place they may play in this battle, but it is kind of cool seeing I don't know, what I would assume are some rebel insurgents, and I don't know, maybe it looks like they're like dropping off the battle droids here, but you can see the streets are being barricaded by these Imperial guys right here. So that just looks very interesting to the eye. There's clearly a story to be told here, and I'd love to know exactly what the heck is going on. The main thing that caught my eye, however, when I looked at this build are these tank builds right here. These things, they look very good, and I think they're just a nice way to accentuate the street in this build. You just typically don't see Imperial mocks done like this, where you have an actual street with people marching in it. I know I was able to do something along the lines of that for my Vardos build, but for the most part, you just don't really see stuff like this. So I think it is a very interesting aesthetic. I love that the tanks themselves are sand colored, so you can imagine this is probably naturally like a desert planet of some sort that the Empire has built some sort of architecture installation on. One technique that really sticks out to me in this build is this right here, using these sandwich tiles right here to get that kind of circular pattern, and then outlining it with what I'm assuming, I'm thinking that's dark orange right there with another 45-degree tile. That is such an interesting looking design right there for some greebling on a building, and I love that the sandwich tiles just leave that very small hole in the middle. I think that looks really cool too, but I've never seen that used quite that way before, so I do think that is a really nice design. If we look up on top of this building, we have some pretty cool looking lampposts sticking out. Pretty simple design, just flex tubing with one of those robot arms, but another just cool, unique looking thing. I love when builders just come up with pretty simple but unique looking designs like that. And then at the very top, we have what I would assume is Admiral Thrawn talking to two shock troopers, so that's pretty nice. Over to the right, we have a bunch of, I think these guys are they the Pikes? I think they're the Pikes, if I'm not mistaken. And they're just hanging out over here on this balcony, so that looks pretty nice. And I think the overall color scheming here is also just really cool. Where you have, you know, the tan over on the left side. You have obviously the light gray street in the middle, and then over to the right side for the architecture, you have some grays and some dark oranges, which is really nice. Typically don't see dark orange used in a Star Wars build unless it's for the obvious Geonosis. A funny little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg, but it is just kind of a funny thing to see here is my boy Garandan once again in the shadows overlooking some guys. I'm sure he's going to be snitching on someone once again. But yeah, this is a pretty cool looking build. Another thing is just the weathering over here, using these quarter circle tiles as well as the 45-degree tiles. You get some nice cracks in the surfaces of this building. And another thing that he did for texture here that I'm just now noticing is rather than using big tiles for these sections, he's using 1x1 tiles to get that square grid pattern. And that's another really simple way you can make a wall look even more interesting. Like, maybe consider, you know, the sizing of your tiles rather than just trying to, you know, get the biggest possible tiles to cover that space. You can do something like this, literally just use 1x1s and or even 1x2s, and you can get some patterns that, you know, are still just more or less a flat wall, but the texture is what makes it a little bit more visually distinctive to the eye. One last thing I have to mention is I love the inclusion of the Scarab Troopers right here. Those guys are such awesome minifigures, and I appreciate seeing them at any time. So altogether, this is just a very interesting looking build here. The color palette is one you typically don't see for Star Wars or Imperial base builds, and I think this guy did a wonderful job at telling a story here, or at least presenting something that looks like a story that will definitely make someone who is observing this photo ask a lot of questions about exactly what's going on here. So here we have a build by Marcus 1984-04-20. This is called Inside the Gozanti class cruiser. I believe this is a scene from The Mandalorian, season 2, obviously. and it looks really cool. We have the middle of the photo being captured by an Imperial officer surrounded by a bunch of Imperial stormtroopers. One thing I do have to mention, guys, it is 2021. There is no excuse for you to not be using the updated stormtrooper. I don't want to hear any complaints about how the old one is better or more posable. Nope, it's time. Get over it. Get with the times. Get with the changes. We're moving into an era of an updated, superior stormtrooper helmet, and I want to start seeing that helmet be used in more builds. There's no excuse to be using these guys. Anyways, we have our Imperial officer, and we have some stormtroopers kind of surrounding him. I love the way that the walls are slanted here. I think that is just a nice little simple design right there. And there's even some arched windows with some nice light coming through it, and some nice light coming through the ceiling as well, which is probably one of the biggest reasons that I chose this build as a quote-unquote photography-based build. The fact that it does integrate a ceiling, it's just not super often you see a Lego Star Wars build with a floor and a ceiling, and both of those things being captured in a photo. So I think those are probably some of my best or favorite types of mocks, just because it's so immersive, right? Like, seeing, for whatever reason, the ceiling and the floor here really helps me picture myself inside the build. So I love what he did there. There's also these, I don't know if they're vents or some sort of I would assume there's some sort of vent or some sort of machinery that are just lining the upper outsides of the walls, but those look really cool as well. I do also like these cargo crates in the corner over here. They're very reminiscent of the ones that we see on Starkiller Base, given their hexagonal shape. So I love that he's doing that, and they also have some first order coloring as well. And there's just cargo crates all over the place. Like, I could do a separate section on each of these cargo crates that are along the walls here, but I think the fact that they're so versatile and the build techniques in them are so varied that it just makes for a very nice and pleasant looking build. And like I say with most of these photography based builds, like, this is a picture like I would love to hang up in a room. Like, I could make this my laptop wallpaper and I'd be very happy with it like that. But yeah, awesome job, Marcus. This is a very cool, well photographed and immersive build right here. Just update those stormtroopers and it'll literally be perfect, bro. And our final build for the day is done by a builder named Simulterious, and if I'm not mistaken, this is actually the first build that I featured by him on the mock showcase, so congratulations, Simulterious. It is titled Felucia Reconquest, and the one thing that caught my eye right off the bat is that this was a Felucia mock that wasn't simply just a field with a bunch of random interesting looking trees, but he did something a little bit different here. He included this elevated section over here, which I thought was pretty nice, and then what I would assume is maybe like a tree or something that's kind of creating an archway from that elevated section over to this side. And it looks really nice. It's just a cool looking design and an interesting take on Felucia for sure. So at the very bottom of the build, we have, it looks like General Grievous, and he is dealing with Aayla Secura along with her, what are those guys, a 328th Star Corps? I hope I got that right, otherwise someone's gonna roast me in the comments. Guys, I'm sorry, I don't know about clones, guys. It's so hard keeping up with all these colors. I don't know how y'all do it, but those are the yellow clones. How about that? The ones that Bly chills with. So yeah, we got Grievous over here, Commando Droid, Super Battle Droid, as well as some B1s, and he is going after Aayla Secura. For the landscape on this build, I love the usage of these dark orange pieces along with the olive green and the dark tan. I think in general that's a really nice color palette for Felucia. But even cooler over here is this little makeshift fence. It's comprised of Lego ladder pieces, a bunch of Lego bar pieces, and it just looks all rickety and makeshift, and I love it because it's not often you see things like that in Lego. Lego as a system just isn't really conducive to making things look rickety and makeshift, but this guy accomplished it well, and he's using these these newer 3-leaf like flower pieces, and that just looks awesome. I don't know what this is. It's maybe some sort of garden, but the vegetation in here looks great. Those olive green like leaf pieces on top of the dark orange pieces there just looks wonderful. It is very pleasing to the eye. Over to the left, we have some weird, crazy vine things coming out of the ground. Those are pretty interesting as well. If we make our way up the ladder, we can get a closer look at this elevated section, and we have these 2 spherical builds. I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue what those are supposed to be, but they look cool. They're comprised of a bunch of olive green dishes as well as trans clear dishes, and I think that's cool. It just looks cool. And then finally at the very top we have this little tower, which is just a really interesting looking tower build. I mean, there's so many just little parts of this build that are designed just so interestingly, if that's a word I can use there. Finally, we go over to the right side of the build and we have more of the big, weird looking plants and vegetation that we would come to expect from Felucia, and this is done well. The thing I love about Felucia builds is that you have so much freedom with this. Like, I don't think most people are going to go back to the reference material and really scrutinize your plants and trees and everything like that. This could be exactly what we see in the film. This could be just something he totally came up with on his own. Either way, it looks awesome, and I think it fits the aesthetic of Felucia very, very well. Another nice little detail he's included is this Republic fighter tank in here. Kind of interesting, we ended up with 2 Republic fighter tanks in one episode of the mock showcase, which, I mean, I don't know, this might be the first time that's happened, but it's a nice little detail, and you can see it's even crashed here. We have some loose pieces in here, kind of representing it, I guess, digging into the ground, and also a bit of vegetation growing on it, which is symbolizing that it's maybe been deserted there for quite some time. Just little cool things like that can really help tell a story with a build. I'm always stressing here how you can tell stories with builds. If you want to give the impression that something's been in your mock for a long time, it isn't just, you know, freshly arrived on the scene, you can do something like this. You can have some vegetation growing on it to symbolize that it's just been abandoned there for quite some time. Altogether, this is just a very fun build. Color palette is awesome. Felucia is always an interesting location to do, but this isn't more than just a Felucia mock. Like, he obviously took a lot of creative liberties to do something a little bit more interesting than what we typically see from Felucia builds. So I give him a lot of credit there. I think a lot of his techniques are really fun here, and there's a story being told once again, and that's really the thing I ask for most when it comes to builds like this. So congratulations for this being probably your first time on the mock showcase, and keep up the awesome builds, man.